What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today I'm back to talk about Warhammer 40k. Now, I know you guys play 40k both on the tabletop, in video games, or just read the lore, whether it's novels, codices, that kind of thing. And I've noticed that oftentimes armies on the tabletop don't translate as well or exactly like they do in the lore. The only one for that exception is the Space Marines. Space Marines are gods on the battlefield. You have certain named characters that just go undefeated, and that usually pertains to the tabletop. Space Marines get the most love from GW, they have the most options, they do the best, and that's pretty accurate, except when it comes to the Space Marines of the Grey Knights. The Grey Knights are an elite force of Space Marines that are all Psykers, and they've all been uncorruptible. No one Grey Knight has fallen to the temptations of chaos, which is great, it's awesome. And that may be because they hail from the gene seed of none other than the Emperor himself. So with that being taken into account, it's like, these guys should be gods. However, in recent lore and recent transgressions, we've had the Primaris Marine come out and just kind of best the Firstborn Marines in pretty much every way. So much so that you have named characters jumping on over, crossing the Rubicon, and attaining Primaris status. We've had quite a bit, such as Ragnar, Marneus Calgar, etc. So these Primaris Marines are becoming the new Space Marines, so to speak, and that's going to be a trend maybe for all the armies. We've seen the Snagaboys, the Beast Snagaboys, essentially become Primaris Orcs for the Orc line, but that's a whole different discussion. What I'm talking about here is the Grey Knights and how they should be a lot better than what they are. They don't have Primaris, and lore-wise, I don't think it makes sense for them to become Primaris, because they only have one goal in mind, and that is the eradication of the demonic, to quell the warp and to just eliminate the threats that are demons. And they do translate that in the lore from the tabletop, because their smites do more against demons, and they have like certain psychic powers that just, obliterate the demonic. So with that being taken into account, it's like, well, when you're playing against other people in 40k, I feel like the demon army isn't a very played army at all. Like, it's very rare to see an opponent just using all demons. Sometimes you'll see them add a few demon units here and there if they're playing Chaos Space Marines, but for the most part, the Grey Knights will not just outright, have a blast going up against demons, because there are very few demonic players out there. Maybe it's because demons need a little bit more, help being a better army, but for that, it's just, we have to wait till the Demon Codex comes out and whatnot. And speaking of codices coming out, the Grey Knights, I think, definitely need their codex to come out in 9th edition, because back in 5th edition, the Grey Knights were overpowered. If you had plasma in any type of gun, those plasma type weapons couldn't deal any damage to Grey Knights. How is that in any way balanced? But anyway, throughout the editions, the Grey Knights went on this roller coaster of being the best army around to the worst army around, and then they're stuck in this meh area currently. And I say that because they had their they got a bunch of buffs with the, Ritual of the Damned rule, or supplement that came out. And don't get me wrong, that is exactly what the Grey Knights needed, but I think when it transferred from 8th edition to 9th edition, they got royally messed up. Because Grey Knights, they're an entirely all psychic army. So if you're playing against a Grey Knight player, two things are 100% in your opponent's grasp. Go with psychic secondaries, because those secondaries net you points for just killing off psychers, and pretty much every unit in a Grey Knight player's army is a psyker, so you're getting bonus points by just playing the game outright. And not just that, but Grey Knights are an elite army. So you're going to have fewer models against your opponent, and your opponent can use this to their advantage. If they're playing a Horde army, like that is the worst case scenario against the Grey Knight player, because Grey Knights, they're here to do a lot of damage, and oftentimes that damage gets like ignored if you're just killing off one wound models. So Tyranid hordes, Orc hordes, that is the bane of Grey Knights, because if you're an Orc player, you're just going to swarm the battlefield with bodies. And in this edition, Orcs are really good. They're fast, especially if you're playing Speed Freaks, and they shoot really well. I think it's a Bad Moon clan that does really good shooting. So the Orcs have a lot going for them, and unlikely enough for me, Gershwan mains Orcs. So when I bust out my Grey Knights, it's an uphill battle that I can't win. Don't get me wrong, the Grey Knights do have a lot going for them. They're similar to the Adeptus Custodes, where in the lore they're meant to be powerhouses. And usually, the Custodes find a way to come out on top. They usually have like scenarios where, even though they're a very elite army, they have means of acquiring primaries and secondaries where they could turn the tables on a lot of people, and they're very resilient. That's one thing that I have to work on with my Grey Knights, is find tactics that work. Maybe find a way of using less vehicles, because if you're playing Dread Knights, those count as vehicles. If you're playing Dreadnoughts, those are also vehicles. Land Raiders, vehicles. And there is a secondary where if your opponent kills a vehicle, they get more points. That, with like the psychic like secondaries, that's brutal, because you're potentially giving like 3 times the amount of points for losing 1 unit. That's a vehicle, a psyker, and just a regular unit. So yeah, it's not tactically sound, I should say, to play a vehicle heavy Grey Knight list, especially with all these secondaries that are out to just hurt you. So with that being said, I really wish that the Grey Knights in this new codex that they'll be getting whenever, because of codices and like any pre-orders and whatnot, that's come to a halt at Games Workshop. So if you're expecting the AdMech codex soon, like, you have to wait a little bit, at least 2 weeks before anything gets shipped out. But that's just the state of the world. We have to wait to see when these things are coming out and what changes we could find within the book. I don't know exactly how well the Grey Knights will do with the new codex, because again, the issue lies in the way 9th edition is played. It is all about taking objectives, playing the objective game, and holding them. Like, it's not just about, oh, I can kill more of your enemies. No, you need to take objectives, you need to hold them, and you need to stay on top of things, survive. So, and that's one of the things that the Grey Knights are kind of good at, but at the same time struggle with, because all across the Space Marine line, Space Marines got tougher with like an extra wound, same things with Terminators. Their weapons got a little bit buffed. So don't get me wrong, Grey Knights did get a little bit of a buff, but I think it's too little too late with all these secondaries that your opponent can take that'll just take advantage of the army that you're playing. There's very few models that aren't Psychers in a Grey Knights list, but it's like, why are you bringing that? You're playing Grey Knights to like smite the enemy and just take advantage of like all the psychic powers you can do. So yeah, I get it. It's an uphill battle, but my question to you guys is, do you have an army that you main, that you play often enough, that's just fighting an uphill battle against any army of your opponent? Be it Eldar, maybe it's the Tyranids, and how do you come to terms with playing an army that's not so good currently? Do you just shelf it, or do you play it more and more and try to find little tips and tactics that work out to eventually give you that win? Or do you just wait till the edition's over? If you guys do play Grey Knights, please tell me any tips. I need them. But yeah, that was the video for today. So let me know your thoughts on lore versus tabletop. What do you think about that? Tell me, how do you guys overcome uphill battles with your army? And overall, just let me know what your thoughts are. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate you guys commenting down below, letting me know all these things, and watching the video. Because I know not everybody watches the video all the way through, but if you did, Thank you. That's all I can say. As always, this has been the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and I'll be catching you guys in the next one. Peace.